Hello, welcome to this Creative Lab First Look video. I'm Scott Russell and today we're looking at the June 2016 release of Adobe Lightroom. This release has only just been made available and it's only available for Creative Cloud subscribers, so if you have a version of Lightroom that's not part of a Creative Cloud subscription, you may not be able to access the new features we're going to be talking about. There's really only one new feature to talk about in this version, and it is the Lightroom Guided Upright tool. But before we talk about that, I just want to set up my image here so that I get the best out of the adjustment. I'm in the Develop module, and I have a picture here that I took in Manchester a couple of years ago. And before we make any adjustments using the new Guided Upright tool, we must make sure to optimize our image to take advantage of that to the best effect. And that's done using the Lens Corrections panel, and I can open it up just here and check the Remove Chromatic Aberration checkbox, and more importantly the Enable Profile Corrections checkbox. And on doing that, that activates the Lens Profile section down here. And in this case, what I need to do is tell Lightroom what device I took my image with. In this case it was an iPhone, so I select Apple from my list here, and Lightroom correctly identifies the model and the profile for the camera. And you might not have noticed that, but if I just uncheck this box, you'll see that the image adjusts just a little bit through the use of these profiles, and that's always the best place to start for the next change. The new feature we'll be talking about can be found in the new panel down here called the Transform panel, and this is completely new to Lightroom, and it contains a lot of useful adjustments in here that have previously really only been available to Photoshop users. So just to talk about these for a moment, we can see here we have sliders which allow us to adjust based on the vertical or horizontal perspectives. You can see here, and I can move this back and forward. I can rotate my image, and I can adjust the aspect and the scale, and I can also move it about using X and Y coordinates. And at any time, if I want to reset the settings in this panel, I can either do it individually by double clicking the triangle on each individual slider, or I can use the reset button at the bottom of the panel here. To correct the perspective in the image, I have a number of automated options up here in the buttons. They're fairly self-explanatory, but the one we want to talk about here is the Guided Upright option. Clicking the button activates the Guided Upright tool, and you can see on the screen as I move the cursor over the image, I have a cross for my cursor and a loop tool magnifying the part of the image that I'm hovering over. And the idea is that I pick one of the vertical lines that I wish to straighten, and I click and drag the tool, and you can see the guide appear as I do that, and I'll just use this line here against the top windows. And after the first guide is placed, nothing much happens, and that's because you need to place two guides for this effect to be activated. So I'll just go over here to the other side of the pair of windows and draw a second guide, and when I release the cursor, as I'm doing now, you can see how the image is manipulated to straighten those windows. Now this is not quite right yet, and so I can insert some more guides just to do some horizontal straightening, and I'll do that by dragging horizontally, and you can see as I do this, Lightroom then makes the adjustment and straightens up all of these windows. This feature only allows a maximum of 4 guides to be placed at any one time, but the guides can be altered afterwards by dragging them, as you can see I'm doing here, and I can move the guides around and I can shorten them and adjust them in a variety of different ways. Applying these adjustments does necessarily change the image in a number of different ways, and I might want to compensate for some of those odd effects. As you can see here, if I zoom right out, you can see exactly what's happened. And I can use the scaling slider here just to increase the scale of the document to zoom in on the portion that I want to work with, leaving out those odd shapes. And if we want to see just how much this picture has changed, we can activate Lightroom's before and after preview option. And I'll use the split screen one here, and there we can see exactly how much has been changed inside the image. So to finish, I would say that the guided upright tool is extremely useful for making these kind of adjustments if that's the kind of images you need to work with. But even if you don't need to do that, the transformation panel in its own right is extremely helpful, just in terms of the ability to rotate, change the aspect ratio, and the various other sliders that I mentioned before. That's it for this first look video. Do have a look at our YouTube channel for more videos on this and similar subjects, and have a look out for our daily tip of the day, which is released every day at 3:45 GMT on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn.